All right, good morning everyone, and welcome to our session this morning about Pathway to Cloud Hybrid Delivery. Again, my name is Paulina Orlikowski. I'm with HP. I'm the National Cloud Practice Leader for our State, Local Government, and Education Division. And co-presenting today with me is Tim Garza. Tim?
Tim Garza, Natural Resource Agency and DWR CIO.
Great, thanks Tim. We have a lot to cover on today's agenda. We'll first talk about what is cloud hybrid delivery. So what is that? And then Tim's going to talk about Department of Water Resources and Natural Resources and where Tim and the agency is already going on that cloud hybrid path delivery. We're going to talk about the two HP Converged Cloud solutions that we're using in a proof of concept right now with DWR, and then we'll go ahead try to do a short demo if we can fit it in, and then we'll wrap it up with transformation journey to the cloud and any Q&A. All right. So with that, let's first talk about very briefly what is cloud hybrid delivery, and really what it is simply is taking the traditional model of IT of what we've known for the past 60 some odd years and now combining it with the new advent of cloud computing and the various cloud deployment models that we have available to us today, which is private cloud, managed cloud, which a lot of people don't talk about too much. That's a fully managed services cloud, and then public cloud, which people are a little bit more familiar with. And it's taking all of these different types of deployment models and using them to the most maximum efficiency for your organization's needs and requirements. Different types of workloads or use cases are going to be more appropriate given your requirements in different deployment models. And every organization is going to be a little bit different to find out what is the most effective combination of using both traditional and all the different cloud deployment models. And Tim already has this vision of cloud hybrid delivery, so I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk about what's going on.
So good morning. What we'd like to do today is kind of just take you a little bit through what the Natural Resource Agency currently has, a little bit of our thought process, and kind of some of the benefits. And then also what we'd like to do is offer you some guidance on some of the thought process behind whether you should move to the cloud, whether you shouldn't move to the cloud, how do you move to the cloud. And there is no right or wrong answer in any of this. So you've got the elegant speaker on this side, and then I'm just going to shoot it from the hip and let you know how it really works. So, any vendors in the room? So you guys always give me logo slides, so I thought I'd give you a resource logo slide, okay? Yeah. So basically a little bit about the Natural Resource Agency. There are 28 organizations that make up the Natural Resource Agency, and their mission is basically to protect and serve the natural resources of California, and that ranges from water to wildlife to protecting, doing fire protection. So it's a very diverse organization with multiple lines of business, and that really plays into why the cloud strategy is important to us. So let's talk a little bit about, you heard today the speaker, the keynote speaker talking about you have to start with a vision. Well, vision or end state. So really, before we even talked about the cloud, we really want to say, what is our end state for our overall technology environment within the resource agency? And really, it's basically pretty simple. We want to create an environment that provides, an agile, flexible, extendable, but more importantly, a cost-effective way of providing technology capacity and capabilities. And remember those two C's, because that's really why we're driving to the cloud, to provide improved capacity and capability to our lines of business. So that's really our mission, and really our strategy was to look at a hybrid cloud approach. So I want to talk a little bit about this, and I know I probably got some system engineers in the room or some architects. So this is a model that's a conceptual model so that we have to get in all the lines and details, okay? So the folks up here who are architects, you can just be quiet for now, okay? So basically, if you look at this is very much what Paulina was talking about. We looked at basically, we have developed a CNRA, stands for California Natural Resource Agency, a private vCloud services, and we'll talk about what that provides. We have our traditional data center services behind here, and as well as an agency public cloud shared services that provide things like platform, software, databases, and information in a shared mode, much like the reason you see in this diagram, both of those have a lock on them, because we define public, internally public, different than we define external public. And so our model is taking all the concepts that you'll hear about from HP and other cloud providers and really morphing them to the characteristics of our organizations, our business, our constituent needs, our requirements, our compliancy needs. And that's important for you to remember. Your cloud strategy has to match and align with your business needs and what business you're in. So keep that in mind. Also the public cloud services and then managed cloud services, and I think most of you know what those are. The gray box, as you heard Ron mention today, OTEC is moving forward with an OTEC cloud services. So we've had many discussions with OTEC and Ron, and so we've included that in our model, our end state model. So we plan on using those services as well. Let's talk a little bit about some of the thought processes between, how do you make a selection of what those cloud segments, and when I refer to cloud segments, I'm referring to basically the things I just showed you, or the things that Paulina is going to refer to, which is, public, managed, private managed, on-prem, off-prem. So we're just going to use the word segment for that. So cloud segment use really, which one do you use, when do you use it, how much do you put where, and so forth. The key to that really is really looking at your various business and technology needs and understanding what are those needs. And basically that includes compliancy, that includes if are you in the health business, do you have HIPAA compliancy, do you do more spatial data, what are your businesses that you're supporting? What is the time to market for your business? We lose that perspective too often as an IT public sector shop. And you will be going to the cloud, mark my words, because there's no public sector IT entity that I know of that can keep up with ongoing and increasing business demands with all the constraints we have today in the public sector. Resources, skill sets. The cloud will be the only way to align and meet those business demands. So if you're thinking you're going to stay pat, you might be looking for new jobs. So basically, how do you effectively look at these things? Once you decide where they go, it's important to make sure that you don't do one size fits all, because basically these different segments have different characteristics and will provide you different capabilities and different mannerisms. So to effectively gain the capacity in a cost-effective way and align with your business, you need to consider these things. And then really make the choices that are best for your organization. Don't make the choices that resource agency made or Department of Water or your neighboring agency. Look at your own organization and look at what fits your business need. That saying of IT business alignment really, really applies to cloud strategy. Let's talk about some things that are actually happening, and we're really excited about it in the resource agency. I made sure that I invited a lot of my own folks so I wouldn't have an empty room. So I see some folks here, and I'm just kidding. Basically, our cloud portfolio today consists of the private vCloud services, and that's really basically infrastructure as a service. We provide basically all the standard infrastructure to our departments. We have 20 current departments that are using the vCloud services for various sizes of infrastructure. That includes core networking, security, monitoring, providing operating systems, what we call virtual computing resources, which are virtual servers with various size of memory and so forth. We provide this as a internal cloud service. They manage it. So as the consumer and the customers are the IT departments of our organizations, we just provide this as an internal cloud service. So we also have what we call, and we define a little differently, again, public cloud shared services mean within the resource agency that these are platforms or applications that our organizations share. And they look for common characteristics so that they can get scale of economy. For instance, platform as a service. One of the platforms as a service we have is SharePoint. Why invest in multiple SharePoint infrastructures when if you do a true platform as a service, many departments could leverage the same infrastructure, the same licensing agreements, and just kind of federate and encapsulate the business use of that. So platform as a service is something we do. We also look at databases in the same mannerism. So we provide databases services out of this. We also provide package applications, common custom applications that we're trying to get more and more involved in there. Identity source. In order for these shared services to work, we need to have some common identity sources, so we try to federate some of the things like read-only AD structures. So is a key component of our overall environment to share our web services. And scientific computing is really big in the Natural Resource Agency. I don't understand what they do, but it's big. No, it's a really complex thing, and it's really expensive. So to put that in this environment is really a good business decision. Managed cloud services are really kind of software as a service. Currently, we have some software in the public cloud, but it's managed by the vendor. So we have a project portfolio. The things you see with the red stars are things we're currently working on. They're not in play today, but they are either in, we're either looking at them from an analytical standpoint, we're planning for them, we're prototyping them, or we're developing. Right now, we are currently, as Paulina mentioned, we're working with HP on looking at some of their environment, some of their managed services and customer managed services to look at disaster recovery capabilities as well as backup recovery, look at how we can use that more effectively to lower our costs, but to increase our flexibility. So these are some of the things that we have today. We also have things already in the public cloud. We use high performance computing at some of the at both Amazon and Google. So we have services out there. We also have some constituent public website facing applications or websites. So when I say constituents, they're not the department's internal website. They're geared toward particular constituents of particular groups that we're either trying to communicate with or basically, and we put those out there so they're more accessible. So a couple things just to end up, and there's a quote here by our chief architect. So I think I'm not going to read that, but I think it kind of speaks for itself and kind of is preaching kind of what I mentioned here today about evaluate yourself, look at yourself, and kind of move forward with that. So some of the things that we want to, that we've learned is we really have to look at our own organization. And today, you have to be honest with your own IT current capabilities, but more importantly, what are your future capabilities and capacities? Will you actually be able to meet the demands of the business with all the mobile movements, the big data movements, increasing data? You heard the keynote today. It's only going to get more advanced, it's only going to get larger, and the consumerization of IT will drive you to the cloud. So these are things, but so I think that if you really take a hard look, you're going to see the same, come to the same conclusion that most people do. Understand, more importantly, both the public cloud, managed cloud environments, and what they offer and what they don't offer, and how do you govern them. You used to have the accountability and responsibility no matter where you place your data, no matter where you place your services as a public sector entity, you are accountable. So you're, as CIOs and CXs and IT professionals, keep that in mind, okay? Secondly, basically, plan security and plan interoperability. Architect. So, you know, basically, one of the message here is plan the work, but more importantly, don't let the fear prevent you from working the plan. Most organizations, the fear isn't in the business about the cloud, it's in your own IT shops. The IT professionals are probably more gun-shy about the cloud than the business. The business is like, let's do it, let's go. So you have an obligation to work the fear out of the equation, but do it smartly and do it within your business requirements. So basically, that's kind of what that we wanted to kind of blow through that today, because now we're going to take some questions, Q&A, and then I'll pass it after the Q&A session for myself. I'll pass it on to Paulina. So, any questions? So we blew through that pretty fast, and we didn't get into any details. So anybody want to know how, what, or who cares? All right, let me start picking names. Oh, I got some. Okay, right here.
How do you ensure compliance when you use the managed service cloud model?
So the question is, how do we ensure compliancy when we're using either the public or the managed cloud services?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, part of that is in a managed cloud service, you can look at their offerings and you can look at both service level agreements as well as what are the contract T's and C's of a managed cloud services. And it also really depends on what you're putting out there. You know, what type of data you're putting out there. If you're really looking at what I would call very sensitive data that would be potentially under attack a lot, that might not be a candidate. You might want to secure that behind in your own private cloud. But if it's really through T's and C's and negotiations. And then the key is also, if you go back to the one slide we had here in our model, don't forget about your security layer. Your security layer needs to still be part of what you're controlling and what you're dictating to the managed cloud providers. Okay. I have a question in the back.
Organizationally, Tim, how do you deal with server admin, storage admin, network admin going to a private cloud in terms of roles and responsibilities?
So the question was, and I'm repeating it because we're being taped, so the question was basically, if I could paraphrase, how do we deal with the work organizational structure and the functional structure as you move to the cloud, especially around the core competencies of system admins and database admins? It depends. I think that one of the things that we believe that is a foundation for any cloud services to be highly virtualized. And as you go through a highly virtualized endeavor, you tend to change those roles and compress those roles to be effective in your organization. So in the resource agency, we've gone through a very intense, over the last 13 or 14 months, virtualization. So we've kind of revamped those roles and kind of flattened them out. I think you're going to change your organization. It's not going to be based no longer on, you're going to have one vertical for one OS, another vertical for one. And so you're going to have to really, really look at that. And what we did is we took a look at that and found out that the skill sets were similar. It's just that we had what they were going to manage. So they still perform all the engineering things, but we removed, if it's managed services, they don't have to do the system admin work. The managed cloud services do that. The public cloud, they don't do the OS work, but in the private cloud, they do all our OS work. So it's really depending on your operations. So I don't know if that answered your question or if I just tap danced. Okay. Any other questions for Michael? Question?
Question in the
Oh,
back.
question
One
back.
question. I'm kind of curious about how are the people getting to this cloud? How is that going to be affected? Are we keeping our new Windows boxes? Are we going virtual machines? How is that going to happen?
So it was a question basically, what I heard is that how do people get to the cloud?
Yeah. Yes.
Any way they want. By that I mean is, the philosophy about the end device, we believe that we need to take that out of the equation by, if the consumer, when I use consumer, I'm talking about my clients internally, my business people. These end devices are going to bounce around. Android, OIS, Windows, tablets. So the end device, we try to encapsulate our cloud services internally or externally away from the end device. So we bring the security into more of the core and harden the security there. And we do not worry about what end device you're using. And as long as it's compatible from the standpoint of when it gets inside, we control it through the interoperable security layers. And we have a number of security contexts that will define where you can go and what you can get to. So we actually use virtualization to try to eliminate the concept of the end device and don't really care. But again, that's the way we approached it. So, yes, in front.
So did the agency move to this model just because of the sheer volume of data, or was it to get better decision support, better business intelligence? I mean, are you getting all of that, those benefits also?
So basically the question is, what were our business drivers around why we did this? Basically the business drivers was IT was becoming a constraint to the business. The business needs to move fast. They get mandates that they have to respond to quick. their ability, for instance, in the resource agency with a lot of big data, the capability for us to go out and always, okay, all of a sudden they need 100 terabytes for us to procure that. So flexibility to the business was a key business driver, cost efficiencies, and more importantly, the ability to basically align with their needs. You have cloud services, I bet you, all of you, in your organizations today. Because how many of your users are using Drop Drive? How many of your users probably have a Google Drive account? How many of you? So it's happening. So we would rather allow the consumerization of that stuff, but under our conditions, so we can, secure it and effectively align with the business. Question in the back.
How do you see your organization changing once the OTAC gets their cloud, their private cloud environment up and working? How do you see your environment changing?
So the question is really how we would look at when OTAC gets their cloud offerings up. How would we see the impact on our department? We see it as very positive. We see it as another cloud segment that we could effectively make a decision whether to use or not use. For instance, maybe we move some of our private companies that we use manage cloud services. Maybe we move those over to OTAC, into the OTAC model. So we look at it as very complementary, and it's just another extension piece to make us have another option. So we see it as a positive move, and so we're very supportive of Ron Hughes and that movement and the state's movement to cloud. I think Carlos and the rest of the administration at the CTA is going to lead us in that direction because they know we have to go there.
And I'm sorry, one more tack on that. AB 2408, does that have an impact also with agencies as far as the modernization and consolidation efforts?
So AB 2408 was a catalyst to start doing some things. About the consolidation of the data center. It was one of the catalysts to create the resource agency's Tier 3 data center. But regardless of AB 2408, it was the right thing to do, and it was the smart business move to make. So, in front.
How long has CNR been using the cloud hybrid? What challenges have you faced, and how have you addressed these challenges?
I would say the first couple pieces we've been using for about the last year, about 12 months. The two cloud segments we talked about, and the main challenges we really had is thinking about how do we internally operationalize this, creating like matrix teams, looking at moving to the cloud at the same time we're trying to move off of traditional services, and in some cases that's stretched my internal staff. Because as we're in this transition from one to the other, and then also I think the biggest challenge, and the guy sitting next to you, you can elbow him because he'll tell you, is we have to rethink our whole concepts of networks, and how we do networks, how we do network security, how do we create that interoperability between these cloud segments that allow that flexibility. So and so sometimes you have to break old habits and change your mindset. And we have some good engineers, but for like anybody else, that was a challenge and still is. So I think Dave can take you offline because he's sitting right next there smiling. One last question, and then we'll move on.
Can you speak more to the bandwidth and latency of your network and what you had to do to alleviate those issues?
So we actually haven't seen any of those because we were very fortunate that we had modernized our data center before we went to the cloud, and we had moved. We are now 98% virtualized, and so at the same time we modernized our DC capabilities, we increased the core networking throughputs and bandwidth and accommodated for all that. One of the things we also are seeing that for our remote sites, a lot of remote sites, by using cloud services, that can take some strain off of your networks. So you can offload some network traffic by using some cloud services, because so the public cloud services, like some of those constituent websites, they don't go through us to get to them, they just go through the internet. So we can offload some bandwidth by using some of those services. So we haven't had too much problems with that. But if you stay around after, I'm sure that Dave, who is the chief of our network group, can speak a little bit more in detail to anything that he ran across. So I'm going to be here. I'll field some questions after, but I want to make sure that HP has been a great partner, and we're working with that. So I want to make sure they get their time.
Thanks, Tim. And we'll do some more Q&A at the end as well. So, as Tim mentioned, we're working with DWR on a proof of concept right now, and HP Converged Cloud from our portfolio. Converged Cloud is our full end-to-end suite of different and various cloud offerings, from everything from building private clouds to the managed cloud to public cloud, as well as consulting services. And so with the proof of concept that we're doing with DWR, really two services are what we're doing with DWR. And the first one is around one of our consulting services, which is application suitability assessment for the cloud. And the second one is our managed cloud service for virtual private cloud. And we'll just talk very briefly about those. So as Tim mentioned, one of the things that's very important is understanding where to put your workload into which cloud segment or which cloud deployment model. And we put two applications of DWR into our virtual private cloud. One was LifeRay, and you can see the LifeRay application actually at the DWR booth downstairs. And the second one was a GIS application. And we knew the LifeRay was going to work okay, but the fact is that not all applications are suitable for a cloud. All right, I'm going to say that again. Not all applications will run in a cloud. All right, they just won't. I can go into much more detail about that, not in today's session, but you can feel free to talk to me afterwards. I can give you a lot more detail, but you really have to assess the application to see if it's suitable for the cloud, as well as which deployment model or cloud segment it's going to be the most effective in. Meaning, is it most effective in a private cloud, a managed cloud, a public cloud, or maybe it should just stay in the traditional model, given different things. And when we assess an application for suitability, we look at it from the business dimension and a technical dimension, and all of these characteristics. I'm not going to cover these today, happy to discuss it further, but the results when we did the GIS application were that it was suitable for the cloud, and it would work either in a private cloud or in a managed cloud or a public cloud just fine. All right, but we did take a look at it and we did assess it very quickly, just to make sure that it was going to be suitable and for which cloud segment or cloud deployment model for Tim that it might be best in. The second piece of the proof of concept is using our managed cloud service, one of them which is called our virtual private cloud. And that is a full managed service type of cloud offering. We offer both the full managed services around it, but also you can do customer manage with that as well. Pay-as-you-go type of model, which everybody's familiar with. One of the versions that we have of this is a little bit different. We have a version that is for public sector clients only, okay? We have a lot of security around our cloud offerings in general, but our public sector version of this is supersized security, because as we all know, for us in government, we have very specific security needs. As Tim mentioned, things like HIPAA, things like CJIS. And with our public sector version, it is only for government education clients only. So in essence, it's really a community cloud for public sector. Only government agencies can come into this cloud. And we are fully compliant with things, I call it the alphabet soup: FSMA, FedRAMP, CJIS, HIPAA, FERPA, PCI, the list goes on, okay? But we supersize the security for it just because of what we know, in government that we need to do for security purposes. But as Tim mentioned, it's very important to understand, especially your security profile, when you're assessing your applications or your workloads to determine which deployment model it's good for. In this case, for our managed cloud service for virtual private cloud, we have a supersized security version, as I call it, that helps with some of those compliance items. And so basically, I just want to do a quick demo, so just bear with me while I switch laptops and see if I can do this very quickly for everyone. Unfortunately, I have security locked in on my other laptop, so.
I'm writing it down.
If you can remember that, Tim, all the power to you. Let me see if I can switch this out. Maybe not. Okay. Switch laptops. All right, so the portal, like some portals for managed cloud services, and what I'm going to show you briefly is the portal, which is really a one-stop shopping portal. Let's see if that's coming up. So that when you go into the portal, you can see everything that you have sitting in the cloud very easily. So when you first, let me get the right screen up here. And this is live in the cloud right now. So what I'm showing you is actually live in our cloud, and it's actually the portal that's being used by Tim and DWR today right now. So we are live in the cloud, as I say. Let me get the right screen up here for you. Okay. So basically, from the portal, you can pretty much control everything that you have. You can manage all of your cloud servers. So I'm just going to show you this very quickly as it pulls up here. Actually, let me show you this other one. Okay. Actually, when you first enter into the portal, now these are actually all of the VMs that DWR is using today. And so when you first log into this portal, you can see very quickly all of the different virtual machines, physical servers. We also provision out physical servers, and what is being in use, and also a quick health check. You can see all the green dots, which means up, running, everything's okay with it. So that's when you log in here. Other things that is nice about the portal is that you can do all your management right from here, and we'll bring this up very quickly. So that if you wanted to, let's say, add on for, these are the VMs right here. So for a particular VM, let's say here, let's say you wanted to add more storage onto this, you can do that on the fly. You just select it, and then you can add more storage on, or if you want to change the configuration, if you want to deprovision it, you can go ahead and do it from here. Also, if you want to manage your firewall rules, if you have load balancing that you need across different VMs or physical servers, you can set that up. Manage approvals. Let me talk about that for a second. So when you go in, you can go ahead and obviously people can go in and let me switch to the right. You can go ahead and order a variety of services, right? But the fact is that you don't want everybody just to be able to go in and order stuff, unless anybody here have an unlimited budget that you just want people to go in and just order whatever they want? No? Nobody with unlimited? Tim, you got an unlimited budget?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all right.
I try to use the OTEX budget. I'm just kidding.
Where's Ron? Tell Ron that.
Where's Ron?
Where's Ron? So, but one of the things about our portal that's a little bit different. One, you restrict who can, first of all, log into the portal, okay? Secondly, is that for those that are authorized to order, you can also customize the workflow about having approvals in place. So basically, if Steve wants to order up, 5, extra large VMs, running Linux, you can set an approval process in our portal with a workflow status to say, all right, Steve's just ordered 5, but then a message goes to Tim, and Tim's got to actually approve it before it goes ahead and gets provisioned, and that you actually get paid for it. Or you can set it up with multiple levels approvals if needed, and things like that. So, people just can't run around, buying storage here, VMs here, physical servers there, and changing stuff. You can set up approvals. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can. And it's one of the nice features in case you need some sort of workflow approval. Other things that are in, and I'm going to switch to this one. So you can do all the management, documentation. We provide, just very quickly, I'm watching my time here, a lot of material that's helpful for developers. So anything that you might want to know about, Oracle 11G, pre-technical documentation, help guides, everything else loaded in there. I'm not going to bring that up. Billing, of course. Everybody wants to know about billing. So, what are my billing details, right? How much have I spent? And you can do it by monthly invoices. You can see whatever you'd like to see. For everything that you have, you can look at it just for servers, just for storage, just for your networks. And you get an itemized detailed listing, which is nice for each thing. You can track each order. You can see, okay, right now we've spent $2,500. We've got, these are all fictitious numbers, by the way. 16,000 left. So actually, you got 13,000 left, Tim.
They're fixed, they're not real numbers.
I know. I'm like, Tim, you're running out of money. Okay. One of the other things that's nice is you can also run system reports on the fly, real-time system reports to see the usability of the different VMs or physical servers or storage that you're using. You can see detailed graphs. Most of this information you can export out in either to Excel, PDF, or Word files. So if you wanted to save this, like this is showing the detail for the last 30 days, the hits going on a particular VM. I think it's one of the GIS VMs actually. So you can see how much usage or what the cycle usage is that's going on with the portal. If you'd like to see more about the portal, kind of how it works and everything else, feel free to stop by the HP booth. We can give you a more robust demo, but just wanted to show you a little bit. This really provides kind of a one-stop shopping. You can log in service desk tickets, you can log in incident tickets, all of that right here from your portal and control it. Portals like ours do integrate into your LDAP ADs as well, so that you don't have to have multiple user IDs and passwords and all that other good stuff. So it makes it a little bit better for auth and authentication. Okay? All right, so let me switch laptops. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Can you talk a bit about some of the proactive monitoring things?
Sure. So in the HP managed version, okay, where we're providing all the managed services, thanks Tim, around a particular environment, and that's our managed cloud. We do all the management, all the patch management and monitoring up through the OS layer. We do all of the IDS, the IPS, we do all of the security scanning, vulnerability scanning, anti-malware, anti-spyware. We'll also do threat analysis. So with a managed service, and that's a big delta between a managed cloud versus a public cloud, you're getting a lot more of those managed services flavors. So like even with our public cloud with HP, you're not going to get all of those automated management functions with that cloud. Does that help? Did that answer your question? Okay, great. Let me just replug this back in. Okay, I think we're back.
You're good.
All right, we're great. So again, if you'd like to see a little bit more on the portal, please feel free to stop by the booth. I'll be running around, or stop by and see me after the presentation. So transformation journey to the cloud. And Tim talked about it. Most organizations are kind of at the second step right now. Okay, they're right there at the cusp. We've all really virtualized out our environments a lot. All right, now we need to take that next step up, and that next step up is that self-service, infrastructure as a service step up into the cloud. Okay, obviously Tim and Natural Resources and DWR has already taken that first step, but most organizations within government, okay, are still kind of right there at that cusp, all right, ready to take that first step up. As Tim pointed out, and obviously I completely agree, you need to go at your own pace, okay, for what your business needs, because moving to the cloud is a journey, okay? There's different starting points. There is no right starting point, which means no, you don't have to start with, let's say, a private cloud first, or then you move to a managed cloud, then you move to a public cloud. No, there's not one recipe that means you must do this, 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 and this. As Tim pointed out, you have to do what your business users need. What are your requirements? What are your business drivers? What is going to be the best path? Now, for Tim, I mean, Tim's already started, like for what we're doing with Tim, we're in the managed cloud. We're kind of right there in the middle, right, with our proof of concept. Tim's already got things going on with private cloud and augmenting some more out with public cloud as well, all right? But for your organization, maybe the right place is to start over in the public cloud to test a few things out, maybe with some public websites out in the public cloud. Or maybe it's doing dev and test, maybe in a managed cloud. I don't know. But you have to take a look at this as part of your strategy, and it's going to be a transformation. You don't have to do things in a big bang approach either, all right? You can do things in smaller pieces, in phases, and go and build as you go along, because it really is a journey. You know, it's not going to happen overnight, and I don't recommend that it happens overnight. All right, there's too much change when you try to do a big bang. It's too much change on the organization, too much in trying to change, different roles, different jobs, responsibilities, and things like that. Plan it out. Set a roadmap for yourself. Where are you going to start? What's the 1, 2, or 3 things that's going to bring the biggest business value to your organization, given your needs? So what are those 1 or 2, 3 things that you're going to start with? I don't know. Maybe it is dev test in a Managed Cloud. I don't know. Maybe it's working with a PaaS platform, for some of the database platform stuff, like Tim has. Maybe it is doing some consolidation and putting things into a private cloud on-premise in your own DC. I don't know. It's going to be depending upon you. So you're going to have different on-ramps, off-ramps. You're going to all start at different places. All right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. All right? And with that, let's move to some questions. All right, yes.
Go back to the steps. The 5
Sure,
steps.
absolutely. Go back to the steps.
Can't get past the first step. So the standardize term, is that standardize your data or your organization, or what do you standardize?
Well, yeah, and that's a great question. So, you can standardize. It doesn't necessarily mean standardizing on all of your equipment, but it is coming up with standards for your organization, first of all, that you're going to follow, all right? And having some standard approaches, because otherwise, that's when we get IT sprawl, right? And IT sprawl, as we know, is one of the factors that really drives, cost inefficiencies, okay? Because, we've got too many old servers that are, maybe sitting around that maybe need to be decommissioned, okay? Because we don't have a standard in place for when they should be decommissioned, who controls that server, from a management of just a physical asset and things like that. Consolidate. As we know, let's just talk about servers. Servers are usually underutilized. Usually servers are only utilized 20 to 30% of the capacity. They're just sitting there, all right? That's why we consolidate. Making sure that we're having the maximum value out of our IT assets. Instead of, having one server sitting out in, some closet, running one small, application. No, let's standardize and consolidate.
On that
it
point,
saves money.
is HP at all partnering with SimForm in terms of harvesting the unused server capacity?
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with SimForm. I'm going to look to some of my colleagues in the back to see if I can get a nod or something here. I'm not familiar with SimForm, but I can follow up for you on that.
On the standardization, I think that if you're going to look at a hybrid model, the standardization isn't so much in the hardware, and you're not going to dictate standards to the public cloud, but it's in the protocols, and really focus on standardization of the protocols that will make you interoperable across the different segments, and also be interoperable with your security context and mechanism. So I think that's a key lesson learned for a lot of us. We talk about hybrids a lot, but we forget about what we call that string that keeps everything interoperable. So that's where we learned that we need to focus there.
A good question. Any other questions? Yes.
We talk about application transformation. Can either of you discuss what you see that vision as being? Are we going to be seeing more downloadable apps versus web presentation kind of apps in the future?
I think the question was what, as we look at these going forward, what type of business apps that, was that the question?
Yes.
A lot of it's going to do, I think, more and more to do with, you're going to see a lot more flatter apps, I think. In one of the things that we see from the agencies I support in the public sector is the ability and the cost of trying to customize applications, these one-offs, is really too high. So we're really looking at more commercial apps, utilizing platforms. So I think you're going to see where the compute power is there, then you're presenting out more of the result sets. and that will also play into your mobile device strategies and so forth. Okay.
Yeah, let me follow up on that. One of the things, that I think we've learned as we've gone through a lot of these major IT shifts of the past, 50 years, all right? And so if we dial back, for all of us that have been through let's just dial back to the web bubble, okay? When we had the web bubble, we found out that we necessarily couldn't move some of our other apps into the new web architecture out of the box, right? We couldn't move necessarily our mainframes, written in PL1 or assembler or something, or even some of our 3Gs, from client server world. They didn't necessarily always fit nicely into that web architecture. So we had to develop new applications, right, in that new web architecture standard, all right? Fast forwarding to today in the cloud. Now, as I said before, not all apps will work in the cloud, and I can talk more about that. One of the lessons that I think we've learned from the past industry shifts is that when we write applications, we are writing applications that are too tightly coupled with the infrastructure layer, okay? And that makes them less portable across platforms, all right? And it also makes them less portable across cloud deployment models. All right, so as we look, and I agree with Tim, there'll be flatter apps, thinner apps that we'll be using, but that's one thing that we need to keep in mind is we need to make sure that they're portable and not intertwined onto that infrastructure layer. That's been one of our problems and challenges when we get these new technologies, and it's hard to rewrite it, it's hard to try to integrate it out sometimes. Some of the apps that we have today existing will be fine in a cloud. It's just going to really depend on what the app is and what the architecture is.
So we have about 3 minutes. We have time maybe for a couple more questions.
Yeah.
One question here. So what is the capability or feature HP Enterprise Cloud Management Tool can do to channel the talk between public cloud and private cloud? How do HP clouds talk to public cloud?
Okay. So the question is how do HP clouds basically talk from a private cloud to a public cloud or managed cloud to a public cloud? So that's one thing that's unique for HP Converged Cloud overall, which is our overarching cloud solutions. We are standardized on OpenStack as our, we're standardized on OpenStack as the architecture. So when you're moving from a private cloud HP solution, trying to go to a public cloud HP solution, we have a standardized open source, OpenStack based architecture that makes it easier to move around. Yeah, great question.
So we have time for just one more question.
What does your managed service include? Or, is it database administration, those kind of things? Or is it
Okay. The quick question is for the managed services, our managed cloud service option, basically what kind of managed services do you get? Okay. And things like also database administration. So traditionally for the managed service, we manage up through the OS layer just as the standard service. So that gets you everything from OS monitoring, OS patch management, release management, everything that you can think of, all the way up through that OS to include all the security, IDS, IPS, security scans, vulnerability scanning, all of that. Also, we do the backup services as well as if you want backup or storage as part of a DR strategy. Also, on the database side, if you want us to back up databases, we can. Now, for database administration, we can do that, but that's an optional item. All right, because normally everything above the OS layer, which is basically the app layer, is usually the organization's responsibility. But if you do need help with that, just because we have a lot of things that we do in the application space as well, if you need help with that, obviously we can do that. And I think that's one of the big deltas between a managed cloud and a public cloud. You don't usually get those options to say, hey, could I have can I also do this? Usually the answer is probably going to be yes. Whereas, public cloud is a little bit more standardized.
So that's the scheduled time. We want to make sure, as Russ said, to make sure you get time to get to your either lunch or your next session. So we thank you for your participation. Yes. We'll be up here for a few more minutes, at least about 5-10 minutes to take some questions if you want to field some questions offline.
Great, thank you so much.